As I'm about to leave for the Pacific Crest Trail, I thought it would be nice to look back on some of my past experiences in long distance hiking. What are some things that I've learned from every trail that I have ever done? Or at least most of them, because I have left just a couple of hikes out of this. I think anytime I go out on some long hiking trip, whether it is for a week or a month or longer, it would be hard to take away nothing from the experience. So I like to think of these as lessons from the trail. Sometimes in regards to safety, sometimes personal enjoyment, comfort, friendship, efficiency, all sorts of different takeaways every single time I go. Unfortunately, I have had to occasionally relearn these things more than once. But on the other hand, some of these lessons have altered how I hike forever into the future. Alright, so we'll start with the Appalachian Trail in 2012. Unfortunately, I don't have any video from this hike, but I do have a handful of photos that we can look at. I didn't make it very far into the AT that year, unfortunately, but that's where my first lesson comes from. I remember seeing most people like me with a large backpack just kind of plodding and making our way down the trail. But every so often I would see some folks with a lighter weight kit who seemed like they were moving with much less effort and still having just as much fun as I was, even though I had twice the amount of gear on me, if not 3 times or 4 times as much. I learned very quickly that my pack weight can definitely impact my enjoyment of a hike. And in my case, it was the main reason that I quit the AT as soon as I had. I honestly don't think I would have made it the entire distance all the way up to Katahdin. I'm not even sure I would have made it halfway, but I definitely wanted to go further than I did. My pack at the time was very heavy, upwards of 60 or even maybe 70 pounds, and I very soon found that my ankles and my knees, even though I was like 20 years old at the time or something, they just weren't having it. I was in pretty constant pain very soon after starting. So I came home from that trip with a new goal of lightening my pack a little bit and enjoying the hike a little bit more next time. After the AT, I wound up hiking more locally, and I actually hiked this 63-mile trail from end to end upwards of 20 times in the span of a couple years. I learned the value in trying new things near home and testing my skills in an environment close to safety so that I am better prepared for trails that are more remote and further away. I also learned that I need a lot less to be happy than I thought I did back in 2012 on the Appalachian Trail. Before long, I went from a 40-pound pack on this local trail to doing it with a 6-pound pack. I was happier than I could have imagined with much less stuff weighing me down. I used the new skills I found locally to venture very far away and attempt a very large trip. 4,800 miles from Quebec, Canada to Key West in a continuous hike. This trip begins on the International Appalachian Trail. I learned quickly that a friendly smile and a wave goes a long way. Being in a foreign country, predominantly French speaking, through being friendly, I had met so many wonderful people and had a much more enjoyable experience. And even though I did not speak much of the language, people always seemed much more inviting because of my demeanor. I also learned the importance of paying attention to my body at the beginning of a hike, as we are much more physically vulnerable in the first few hundred miles than much later on. This is a lesson I've had to learn more than once, unfortunately. I followed that trip by hiking the Appalachian Trail in 91 days. And I learned how fun it can be to micromanage and plan every future second of my 2,000-mile hike. I still do this. But even more importantly, I learned to remain flexible and follow my heart in what I want to do in the moment, regardless of what my plan is. This hike was also a big eye-opener in that I am stronger than I think I am. capable of walking very long distances over harsh terrain through bad weather with a heavy pack on my back, I learned that these types of trips are something I truly want to do more of. When I hiked the Pinhoti Trail, it was just after completing the AT, and honestly, I wasn't in the best headspace at the time. I had walked a long way already, and mentally, I was pretty tired. This trail taught me that these hard times are fleeting, and that maybe I want to quit now, but that I should never quit just because I'm having a hard day or a hard week. I found new ways to appreciate the small things in my day, from nice sections of trail, to flowers, to convenience store food, or the brief but wonderful conversation with other hikers. I made this trail harder on myself, but sometimes that's just how it is. I wish I focused more on the small things in the moment, knowing my feelings would pass. I later successfully set the speed record on the Florida Trail, and in doing so, I learned the importance of waking up early. Whether you want to make big miles or not, your day will be much better with an early start. Seeing the sunrise and going about your day in a more relaxed manner because you woke up early, instead of feeling rushed from a late morning and start. The next year, I tried to join a friend on her thru hike, and I quickly found out how difficult that is to do. They were in great shape, and I was not. Coordinating where to meet up was hard in itself, as they are constantly moving forward and not stopped anywhere specific for very long, and especially not anywhere near any airports. I am always very weary of anyone wanting to join me on a thru hike, and I think this trip, where I was in the other shoes, has definitely influenced that. In 2018, I was not successful in my goal of thru hiking the Pacific Crest Trail, and I learned many things from this attempt. One of which being, if I want to go fast, then I gotta train hard to do so. The slower I go, the less I would need to prepare. Although I was ready mentally for this hike, my gear was good, and I was experienced, I was also out of shape, and that made my life harder, and certainly contributed to me getting off trail. In 2019, I wanted to hike the Sheltowee Trail in Kentucky, because I had heard rumors of it being cool, but also because most people go on vacations to beaches. I wanted to vacation somewhere new and different. I learned that the less popular trails can sometimes be the coolest, as I very much enjoyed hiking the Sheltowee, and I look forward to spending more time out there in the future. So, just because a trail isn't world-renowned doesn't mean it isn't going to be an incredible experience. Later that year, hiking with friends on the Pacific Northwest Trail, I learned how fun it is to be in a group when you have similar enough hiking styles. In the end, this trail was great, but truly, spending time with my buds was the highlight of this hike. It wasn't always easy, as we got separated for 200 miles or so, but any of the harder times was definitely worth the experience of hanging out with them and exploring the Northwest. I got a ride back to Utah with friends and hiked the Uinta Highline Trail. The trail was rugged, exposed, and had midday storms nearly every day. I found that cheap gear can be great, but maybe it can't always be relied on. When it comes to warmth or keeping dry, I want to trust what I have, even if it costs more. In the case of this trip, my rain jacket that otherwise looked very normal critically failed, and I was left in a very bad situation. I've since forever changed how I do some things in hiking, and am at least further aware of the risk I take in the gear that I use. I had already hiked the Florida Trail before, but this time was different, as I was not hiking alone. I did this hike with a friend, and though I am extremely familiar with the trail and the state overall, she would see things that I would miss. Her differing interests from mine showed me things that otherwise I may not be looking for. Seeing the trail through her eyes was a great gift, and hiking the trail together, I got a whole new perspective than when I was alone. which is, of course, just another advantage to hiking as a group. I don't want to say that the Arizona Trail reignited my love of hiking, but it certainly reminded me again how awesome it can be. That it is incredible to be hiking in such a harsh environment, surviving and thriving while experiencing these new places. I learned that the extra challenge this trail offered made the trip so much more rewarding. From the heat, the solitude, the harshness of terrain, and the lack of water, I gained a lot of confidence through overcoming these things. Sometimes the challenge can make the journey that much better. I traveled a bit further west afterwards, and although I loved the Tahoe Rim Trail, what I personally really learned on this trip was that sometimes the best part of a hike can be the sightseeing and travel in the areas surrounding a trail. I spent time all around Lake Tahoe. I spent time in the mountains to the south, while on most hikes I passed through an area while on trail, not really getting to see much other than what the trail itself is going to offer me. It was really nice to get to know the entire area this time around. Also, for anyone with aspirations of hiking the Pacific Crest Trail, I personally cannot imagine a better prep hike than the Tahoe Rim Trail. Similar conditions, high elevation, logistics, it was both fun, but also a cool way to prepare for something bigger. The Long Trail of Vermont has been my last big hike, and I learned that no matter how experienced I am, or you are, things don't always go as planned. And that is okay. Any hike is an adventure, and whether I complete the goal or not, I would much rather be experiencing these new places than anything else. There is no such thing as failure, just memories to look back on fondly. I very much enjoyed my time on the Long Trail, and definitely look fondly back on that experience. So the PCT is almost here. It's been a good off season. I feel like I've gotten a lot done. I feel like I'm prepared for this year's hiking, and I'm really excited to get back out there. And I'm really excited to be taking you guys out there as well. So thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, give me a little thumbs up. If you aren't already, please subscribe to this channel. And yeah, I look forward to seeing you guys in the next video. Thank you again.